It's Monday, the 7th of February 2022. Welcome to the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Morning, Michael.
All right, 5 stories, 5 minutes. Let's get into it, Sean. Story number 1, earnings season kicks off this week, and rising consumer prices and supply chain challenges are really threatening to eat into profits.
Yes, they sure do, and it comes as global markets are jittery over the prospect of higher inflation and interest rates. Let's run through some of the top companies. Now, the miners, BHP, Fortescue, Rio, they're facing higher staff costs as Western Australia remains shut down and rainfall problems in Queensland. However, commodity prices are high. That's good for them. The Commonwealth Bank will report it should benefit from rising interest rates. In fact, Westpac last week reported a quarterly result and said that it had been able to cut costs and its share price did pretty well. A lot of pressure on the Commonwealth Bank, though. It's the market leader. Also, retailers have been hurt by the Omicron slowdown. That was mostly late last year and early this year. That could hurt its profits. Travel and tourism stocks will demonstrate how slow it's been for that sector. Hopefully, earnings will start improving from there. The real estate investment trusts, they're likely to be mixed. Then, of course, we have the health and tech stocks. They have fallen and risen over the past week on the share market. It's been a wild ride for those guys. Basically, we're waiting to see what CEOs say. What they can't say is use COVID as an excuse. People don't want to see that, and they can't miss the earnings forecast. It's going to be fun.
Sure will be. And story number 2, Sean, a bit of bad news really for anybody hoping to score a bargain at the petrol bowser anytime soon, because some commodity prices are soaring, and one of them that's gone up, unfortunately for us, is oil.
Yes, Brent crude is now above $93 a barrel. Why do we care? Because that's the stuff that's refined to put into our cars. That's where petrol comes from. So Brent crude is now at a 7-year high. Not good news in terms of the petrol bowser. There's not a direct correlation, but there's some sort of correlation, though it's a bit tricky to work out that one. Overall, commodity prices still remain really high, which should be good for the Australian economy. Coal prices were flat last week, but they're about 160% above a year ago. Gold is trading above $1,800 an ounce. Iron ore, that's at $143 a tonne, edging back to that $150 a tonne mark. But the commodity that's really surging is lithium. And of course, that's used in batteries. Its price is up 45% over the past month. That's where the investors are finding the best returns.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. Story number 3, and this is pretty outrageous. The Barnaby Joyce texts that were released over the weekend. As a backbencher, nearly a year ago, Mr. Joyce called the Prime Minister a hypocrite and a liar and said he never trusted him. He then apologised for it, of course, when the text surfaced. And Scott Morrison over the weekend said all is forgiven.
Mind you, it never ceases to amaze me why people put these sorts of comments in text messages. As you said, Prime Minister Scott Morrison yesterday forgave Barnaby Joyce. He said the texts were a product of human frailty. Can you imagine how much Mr. Joyce liked hearing that? Mr. Morrison said politics is a brutal business and politicians say and feel and do things they shouldn't. But who was he to judge? It's a bad start to the week for the government. Of course, Parliament returns tomorrow and the unofficial election campaign is already underway.
Goodness me, it's going to be a very long election campaign, this one.
I think so.
Okay, story number 4, Sean, and we love talking about house prices, and there's been a lot of talk in the last week about interest rates. Did it scare people off from auctions over the weekend?
Well, no, not really. I mean, in fact, clearance rates in Sydney and Melbourne, the two most expensive and most stuttering markets, shot up according to CoreLogic, 77% in Sydney and 75% in Melbourne. And that's despite there being many, many more auctions this week. Anecdotally, there were more bidders and larger crowds at auctions. Across the country, there were nearly 1,800 homes up for auction. That's about 50% more than a week ago. And the clearance rate was 74. Now, we found out last week that interest rates would be rising before 2024. That's the timeline the Reserve Bank had put on interest rate rises. Most people are saying it'll be late this year or early next year, but that certainly hasn't deterred home buyers.
Okay, story number 5, last one. We've had plenty of bans and tariffs imposed by Beijing over the past couple of years, and one sector that hasn't really been able to fully recover is one of our favourite sectors, the wine sector, Sean.
Yes, the latest Wine Australia export report shows that sales of the local drop fell 30% last year to overseas buyers. Now, mostly that's thanks to tariffs imposed by China. Our total sales last year were $2 billion, we lost about $1 billion worth of sales to China, hence a big drop overall. Wine exports to China, of course, were hit by tariffs in late 2020 as political tensions between the two countries intensified. Now, other commodities got hit with tariffs or bans. Coal did, beef, barley, wheat and sugar. In every one of those cases, though, they've been able to find alternative markets and exports have risen. Whereas with wine, it just hasn't done as well. Sales are up in Hong Kong and Singapore. They're actually down in the UK and US as well. All in all, not good news for the wine industry.
Yeah, certainly not good news at all. And that's it, the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Monday, the 7th of February, 2022. Remember to hit follow on the podcast, and you can find our longer daily podcast called Fear and Greed on your podcast platform as well. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.